Dust covered everything, ships, armor, even the air. The battlefield stretched for miles. Broken metal and twisted steel scattered under a dull red sky. Captain Joren Hale walked slowly, his boots crunching over ash. He had seen wars before, but nothing this quiet. Nothing this wrong. There were no gunshots, no screams. Just the sound of wind whistling through the wreckage. Joren's squad had gone silent 3 hours ago. They were tracking a group of human raiders who'd been attacking supply ships near the edge of the neutral zone. The raiders weren't strong, but they were desperate. Desperate people were the most dangerous kind now, as Joren moved through the ruins. His comms crackled with static, no voice, just a faint whisper like breathing. He stopped beside a burned-out transport. Its side torn open like paper. Blaster marks lined the metal. But something about them was strange. They weren't straight or clean. They looked melted, almost like something had burned through it from the inside. His fingers tightened on his plasma blade, its soft blue light cutting through the dust. The deeper he went, the worse it got. He found bodies, but not the kind he expected. These men hadn't died in a fight. They had been shredded. Armor torn apart, faces frozen in horror. Joren knelt beside one, a raider captain by the rank patch still glowing faintly on his chest plate. His hands were raised like he'd been trying to protect himself from something far above. Joren touched his helmet comm again. Unit Alpha, report. Nothing. Only silence and that faint, unnatural hum again. It seemed to be coming from the eastern ridge. He hesitated, looking toward it. The horizon shimmered with heat, and faint black smoke curled from a set of structures ahead, an old mining base. Cautiously he moved closer. His motion sensor flickered. One red dot still alive inside the base. Finally a survivor. He climbed over fallen walls, stepped past blood-soaked dust and entered the old command hall. The light was dim, broken panels sparking weakly. And then he saw him, kneeling in the center of the room. A raider alive, he was trembling, his face pale. His armor cracked in one hand. He held a dull sword, pressing it to his own throat. Joren raised his plasma blade, voice firm. Drop the weapon. The man didn't even look at him. Instead, he whispered in a voice that barely carried. Please, kill me. Joren frowned. Why? The raider lifted his eyes, bloodshot and terrified. Because she's still in there, he said, nodding toward a dark corner of the hall. Joren turned and saw it, a massive cage. Thick steel bars fused with alien tech. The locks were twisted, the energy field flickering weakly. Something inside was moving, slow and steady like breathing. What is that? Joren asked, stepping closer. The raider shook his head violently, tears spilling from his eyes. You don't understand. We tried to control it. She promised us power, but she's not human. He gagged, blood dripping from his mouth. Kill me before she gets out, he begged. Voice cracking, Joren hesitated, lowering his weapon. The cage gave a low metallic groan. A faint whisper drifted through the air, soft and cold. Joren, he froze, his heart skipping a beat. He'd never told anyone his name here. How could something inside that cage know him? He took one slow step backward, his mind racing. The raider screamed suddenly, a horrible, strangled sound. Then his body went limp, lifeless. The sword slipping from his hand. The lights flickered again. Something glowed within the cage, faint silver light pulsing like a heartbeat. Through the bars he saw a silhouette, tall, slender, human-shaped but wrong, its eyes opened, reflecting light like liquid mercury. It looked straight at him, and for the first time in years, Captain Joren Hale felt real fear. He wanted to run, but his feet stayed still. The creature spoke again, voice soft and calm. You came back for me. The words didn't make sense. He had never seen her before. Yet something deep inside him whispered otherwise, his memories, distant and blurred. Stirred painfully, he took another step forward. Unable to look away, the cage door twitched, then snapped open with a hiss. The thing inside rose slowly, chains falling away like dust. The silver glow grew stronger until it filled the room, and in that glow, Joren thought he saw something like sadness in her eyes. Before everything went black, the last thing he heard was her voice, a whisper in the darkness. You shouldn't have come back here. When Joren woke, his vision was hazy and every sound echoed inside his skull. The air smelled like burned metal and ozone. The old mining base was in ruins. The walls blackened, the ceiling cracked open, and the cage was empty. He pushed himself up slowly, his plasma blade lying just inches away, its blue light flickering weakly. The raider's body was gone. only a trail of blood leading out into the hallway. Joren's voice rasped through his comm. "Nova, come in." Static answered him, followed by his ship AI's faint, broken tone. "Captain, your vitals are unstable. Do you require extraction?" He shook his head, still trying to focus. "No, not yet. Something's here. Something I need to see." The light shifted from the shadows of the corridor. She stepped out. Her body shimmered faintly, skin pale with a silver hue that caught the dying light like liquid moonlight. She wore no armor, only torn fabric that looked centuries old. Her hair floated slightly as if gravity didn't dare touch her, and those eyes, bright silver, cold and endless, watched him with an emotion he couldn't name. Joren raised his blade. "Stay where you are." She tilted her head, the movement gentle, almost curious. "You still point that thing at me," she said softly, "even after what they did to you." Her voice carried something strange, calm, soothing, but heavy, like it came from deep inside his own mind. Joren frowned. "What are you talking about? Who are you?" She stepped closer, bare feet silent against the metal floor. "You knew me once, before they made me forget myself." The lights above flickered as if reacting to her words. Every system around them hummed to life for a brief second. Joren felt his armor's power cell surge and then stabilize again. He gritted his teeth, keeping his weapon ready. "You were locked in that cage for a reason." She smiled faintly, sadness behind it. "Yes, because I asked them to." For a moment, neither moved. Then Joren's wrist scanner beeped. The readings made no sense. Energy levels were spiking beyond anything human. She wasn't radiating heat. She was radiating raw power. Project Seraph. The name flashed across his screen. Classified military file. Joren froze, his stomach turning cold. That project was supposed to be destroyed long ago. "You're from the labs," he said quietly. Her eyes softened. "You remember the labs?" "No," he said, his voice harsh. "I remember what came out of them. Things that looked human but weren't." Her expression didn't change, but her voice trembled. "And yet, here you are." Still trying to save one. Before he could answer, a sharp sound echoed through the corridor. Boots, many of them, heavy and fast, raiders, armed, drawn by the explosion. Joren turned sharply. "Down!" But she didn't move. Instead, the air around her rippled like heat, and the world went silent for a heartbeat. Then, with a flash of silver light, the first raider flew backward. His weapon melted in his hands. Another screamed as the floor buckled under him. Joren watched in shock as she raised her hand. Palm glowing faintly, no blast, no weapon, just energy bending to her will. Within seconds, the entire squad was down, unconscious but breathing. The glow faded, leaving her standing in silence again. She turned back to Joren, her expression unreadable. "I didn't kill them," she said quietly. He looked around, stunned. "You could have," her voice softened. "Once. I wouldn't have stopped." The air was thick between them, fear. Oh, something else neither wanted to name. Finally, Joren spoke. "You're coming with me." She raised an eyebrow. Amused. "To another cage?" "To my ship," he said, "until I figure out what you are." She smiled faintly. "You already know what I am." Joren glared. "A weapon?" Her smile vanished. "No, a mistake." The building creaked above them as the ceiling began to collapse. Dust and debris fell in clouds. Without a word, she moved. Faster than any human could, grabbed his arm, and pulled him through the falling rubble. He barely saw her move. The world became a blur of silver light and wind. They stopped outside, the night sky wide above them, stars glimmering through the broken clouds. Joren stared at her, chest heaving. She looked up at the stars, whispering almost to herself. "They said the stars would make me remember who I was." He followed her gaze. Uneasy, somewhere far above, his ship beacon blinked, and deep inside, a question burned brighter than fear. Had he really come to rescue a victim? Or had he just released something the universe should have left buried? Joren's ship rose through the clouds like a wounded bird, engines sputtering from the earlier blast. Inside the cabin, everything hummed with low power. Sparks fell from a cracked ceiling panel, and the smell of burned wires filled the air. He sat in the pilot's chair, gripping the controls while stealing glances at the passenger seat. She sat there, calm, silent, eyes glowing faintly silver as if reflecting light that wasn't there. For someone who had just destroyed an entire squad without breaking a sweat, She looked strangely human. "Don't touch anything," Joren said flatly. "I wouldn't know how," she replied softly. Her voice had that same echo, like two tones speaking at once. One warm, one mechanical. The ship's AI, Nova, spoke from the console. "Captain, you are transporting an unregistered life form. Please confirm containment protocol." "Not a prisoner," Joren muttered. "A situation." Nova paused. "Situation has a name?" The woman looked up, meeting Joren's eyes. "Seraph," she said quietly. "They used to call me Seraph." Joren's fingers froze on the controls. He hadn't heard that name in years. It was buried deep in military history. Project Seraph, a secret human experiment during the early colonization wars. The goal was to create perfect soldiers, half human, half energy-based synthetic. The rumor was that they'd succeeded, but the results were too powerful, too unstable. The entire research site had exploded, killing hundreds, and the project was erased from records. Until now, he looked at her again, studying her face. There was pain in her eyes, real pain, not the cold emptiness of a weapon. "You're supposed to be dead," he said quietly. Her voice trembled just a little. "So were you." He frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" She leaned forward slightly, her silver gaze steady. "You were there when it happened, Captain Hale. You helped build me." Joren froze. For a moment, everything around him faded, the ship, the stars, even the sound of engines. Images flashed behind his eyes. White halls, glass tubes, the smell of coolant and burnt ozone, a voice yelling, "Shut it down!" And then her face behind a glass wall, eyes glowing just like now, reaching out for him as alarms screamed. He blinked hard, gripping the armrest. "That's not possible," he muttered. Seraph's lips curved sadly. "You forgot." "They made sure you did." Nova's voice cut in sharply. "Captain, incoming transmission. Classified encryption. Origin, Earth Military Command." Joren's pulse jumped. "On screen." The console flickered, revealing a grim officer's face. "Captain Hale, you are ordered to detain the subject designated Seraph immediately," the man said. "She is a level Omega threat. Do not engage. Do not communicate. Contain or terminate." Joren's jaw tightened. "You mean execute?" The officer didn't blink. "If necessary, yes." The transmission ended, leaving the cabin in silence. Seraph sat quietly, watching him. "You see?" she said softly. "They still fear me." "They always did." Joren slammed a fist against the console. "What did you do back then?" Her expression darkened. "I didn't destroy the lab. I became the explosion." The air seemed to pulse faintly around her. "They wanted to rewrite my mind, to erase emotion, make me a perfect killer. But emotions don't die. They burn." He swallowed hard, not sure if it was fear or pity twisting in his chest. "So you killed everyone," he said, voice low. Her reply was almost a whisper. "I tried to stop them. I begged them to let me sleep." Joren stared out the viewport, the stars stretching into long streaks as the ship entered faster than light. He didn't know what to believe anymore. His own memories felt like someone else's life. Was he really one of the scientists who helped create her, or just another soldier cleaning up their mistake? After a long silence, she spoke again. "You asked me once what I wanted," she said, eyes distant. "I told you I wanted to feel the stars, not destroy them." Her voice softened, almost fragile. "You said one day you'd take me to see them." Joren's throat tightened, his grip on the controls slackening. Something in her tone, so human, so tired, cut deeper than he expected. Then the radar beeped, sharp and loud. Multiple signatures appeared behind them. Warships, human design closing fast. Nova's tone sharpened. "Captain, hostile intercept in 90 seconds. Joren cursed under his breath. They didn't waste time. Seraph closed her eyes, her hands glowing faintly. "Don't fight," she said softly. "Let me handle this, like last time?" He snapped. She looked at him with that same sad smile. "You still don't understand. I'm not your enemy. I'm your creation's regret." Outside the ship, the stars dimmed, and the light around her began to rise again, soft, silver, and terrifyingly beautiful. The ship shuddered under a sudden burst of turbulence. Joren gripped the controls tightly, alarms flashing red across the cockpit. Outside, 3 military interceptors closed in fast, sleek, black ships with the Earth Command insignia burning bright on their wings. "Nova, evasive maneuvers now," Joren barked. "Engaging thrusters." the AI responded. But they are faster, Captain. Much faster. Joren's pulse raced. His mind running through a dozen escape plans, none good. He glanced at Seraph. She was still sitting calmly, her hands folded in her lap. The silver glow beneath her skin pulsed faintly, in rhythm with the ship's engines. Don't just sit there, he snapped. They'll blow us out of the sky. She looked at him, almost pitying. If they fire, they'll regret it. Before he could answer, the lead interceptor launched a missile. A streak of white light tore through the blackness, spiraling straight toward them. Joren yanked the controls, diving the ship hard left. The missile clipped the rear thruster, shaking the whole vessel. Smoke filled the cabin. Warning sirens screamed. Engines at 40%, Nova warned. Hull breach in Sector 5, Joren cursed. Struggling to keep the ship steady, then without a word, Seraph stood. Her hair began to lift in invisible wind, her eyes brightening into white fire. Sit down, he shouted. You'll get yourself killed. But she didn't listen. Instead, she placed her hand on the control panel, and everything changed. The lights flickered once. Then the entire ship's energy system flared alive. Joren felt power surge beneath his feet like a living pulse. The ship screamed through space faster than its engines could ever allow. Outside, the stars stretched into silver lines, bending and twisting around them. Nova! Joren gasped. What's happening? The AI's voice came out distorted, static crackling. Captain, energy readings are beyond known scale. Source, the passenger. Joren turned toward her. Seraph's entire body was glowing now. She looked like something out of a dream, part woman, part storm. Her voice was calm but distant. Don't fight the current. Let it take us. He could barely see her through the light. What are you doing? Keeping you alive, she said. You used to do the same for me, then everything went white. The ship tore through hyperspace like a comet, breaking through dimensions instead of stars. Joren's stomach twisted as gravity vanished, and for a moment he thought they had died. But then the ship steadied, floating in total silence. When he looked out the viewport, his breath caught. They were no longer in known space. The stars were gone. Instead, a swirling blue nebula stretched endlessly in all directions. It pulsed with light, slow and alive like a massive heart. This isn't on any map, Joren whispered. Seraph stepped beside him, eyes soft. No human map, she said quietly. This is the place where they found me. Joren turned to her, confused. What do you mean, found you? She ran a hand along the glass, her touch leaving trails of silver. I wasn't made, Joren, I was found. Buried beneath ice and metal on a dead moon, they thought I was a weapon. A machine. But I was sleeping. Her voice broke slightly. And when they woke me, they gave me a name and a purpose I didn't ask for. Joren stared at her in silence. He didn't know what to say. Every part of his training told him to see her as a threat. But something about her story, her sadness, her calm acceptance didn't sound like a monster's. You killed so many, he said quietly. She looked down. Yes, because they tried to take me apart. Every time I screamed, something inside me broke. Until there was nothing left but light. Joren's fists clenched. Then why save me now? She met his eyes. Because you didn't run. You tried to protect me. Even after I destroyed everything. He opened his mouth, but before he could answer, Nova interrupted. Captain, signal detected. Earth Command tracking beacon active. They followed us, Joren turned sharply. That's impossible. We jumped into a different sector. Seraph's voice grew quiet. They will always follow what they fear. And they fear me more than death, outside. The nebula rippled, light waves spreading like ripples in water from within the blue mist. New shapes began to form, dark, enormous, ancient. Joren's radar screamed warnings he couldn't read. He looked at Seraph, heart pounding. What's in there? Her voice was calm but sad. My past, she whispered. And your answers. The storm outside grew louder. Lightning streaked through the blue haze as something massive moved within it. Seraph stepped forward, her silver light pulsing brighter, and for the first time Joren saw fear in her eyes. Hold on, she said softly. The storm remembers us both. The nebula rumbled like a living creature, its glowing waves rolling across the ship's hull. Joren tightened his seat straps, his heart pounding as blue lightning split the sky outside. The ship's sensors went wild, showing readings beyond any known scale. Nova, status report, he shouted. The AI's voice glitched, full of static. Unknown anomaly detected. Gravitational distortion increasing. Captain, we are being pulled in. Joren fought the controls. But the ship didn't move. It felt like invisible hands were dragging them deeper into the glowing storm. Through the viewport, shadows swirled within the light, giant silhouettes twisting and vanishing like ghosts. Beside him, Seraph stood completely still, her silver eyes fixed on something only she could see. "This place," she whispered. "It remembers me." Joren turned sharply. "What do you mean?" Her voice was soft, distant. "Before I was a weapon, before they built my cage, I was found here." She reached out, pressing her hand against the viewport. The nebula responded, its blue light bending, pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. Then slowly, the storm cleared just enough for Joren to see something beyond it. A massive structure floating in the mist, black metal and glowing white veins of energy. It wasn't a station. It was a tomb. "Nova, what is that?" Joren demanded. "Unregistered construct," the AI said weakly. "Age, unknown. Energy output identical to passenger Seraph." Joren felt the chill crawl down his spine. He looked at her. "That thing is... like you?" She nodded once. "No. That thing is me, or what I used to be." The ship trembled as it descended closer, drawn by an unseen force inside the structure. A dull red glow blinked to life. Seraph's breathing quickened, her calm voice now trembling. "I remember this light. It was the first thing I ever saw." Her expression changed. Pain, guilt, and sorrow all mixed together. She stepped forward, whispering as if to herself. "They said I was human once, that I volunteered for the experiment. But they lied." Joren frowned. "What are you saying?" Her silver eyes turned toward him. "You were one of them. Joren, you helped unlock me from this place." He froze, his throat dry. "That's not possible," he said quietly. "I was a soldier, not a scientist." Seraph shook her head slowly. "You were both. You were my handler. You wiped your own memory after the explosion." The ship jolted violently, the floor panels cracking as power surged through every system. Images began to flash across the cockpit screens, fragments of old video files. Joren's younger face appeared on the monitors, wearing a lab coat, standing beside a glowing containment pod, and inside it, Seraph, asleep. Wires running through her skin, her eyes closed, peaceful. His own voice echoed from the recording. "She's stable now. We'll keep her mind locked until Phase 3. She won't remember anything when she wakes." Joren felt his knees weaken. His entire life, the missions, the orders, the lies, all of it built on buried truth. He had caged her. He had erased her. The explosion that destroyed the lab wasn't an accident. It was her trying to break free from him. He whispered, "I tried to stop them." Seraph's voice broke. "No, you tried to stop me. You were afraid I'd remember who I was." The ship's hull groaned, metal warping under pressure. Joren could barely keep his balance as energy waves rolled through the cabin. Seraph stepped closer, light swirling around her feet. "You see now," she said softly. "You didn't find me by chance. You came back because the storm called you home." He stared at her, lost between guilt and awe. "If I really did this," he said quietly, "then why save me now?" Her silver eyes softened. "Because you were the only one who saw me as more than a weapon. Even when you locked the cage, you cried." Her words struck deep. He remembered. Flashes of himself standing outside the lab, palm against the glass, whispering, "I'll fix this someday." The memory felt so real it hurt. Then the red glow outside turned white hot. The tomb's walls opened like giant petals, revealing a blinding core of light. Inside floated hundreds of shapes, humanoid. Suspended in energy, Joren's breath caught. "Are those prototypes?" Seraph finished softly. "They never stopped making us." Suddenly, the ship's alarm screamed again. "Captain, multiple energy spikes!" Nova shouted. The figures in the light began to move, slowly turning toward the ship. Seraph's voice grew urgent. "They're waking up."
"We have to go now!"
Joren hit the thrusters, but the engines refused to respond. The ship was caught in the pull of the structure, and through the blinding light, one of the figures opened its eyes. Silver, like hers. Seraph grabbed his arm, her voice breaking. "If they wake, the stars will burn again. Joren, you have to trust me this time." He looked at her, torn between fear and belief. "What are you going to do?" Her answer was simple, calm, and final. "I'm going to finish what I started." The ship trembled under waves of raw energy. The nebula outside had turned white, its calm glow now raging like a storm of lightning and flame. Seraph stood in front of the viewport, her hair floating weightlessly, eyes glowing brighter than the stars. Joren struggled to steady the ship, shouting above the alarms. Nova! Reroute power to thrusters, get us out of here, the AI's voice crackled. Unable to comply, Captain. Gravitational lock active. We are trapped, Joren slammed a fist against the console. Then cut it manually. I can't, Nova replied. Source of interference is internal. He turned sharply. Seraph's body was glowing so bright it was bleeding into the ship's systems. Seraph, stop! He shouted, You're feeding power into the core. You'll destroy us. She didn't look back. Her voice was soft, calm, almost peaceful. If I stop, they'll wake. Joren's chest tightened. Outside the ship, the massive black structure pulsed with silver light. The hundreds of shapes floating inside its heart began to stir. Slow, graceful, terrifying, each figure looked almost human. Yet wrong, faces smooth, eyes sealed. Skin threaded with faint light. They're alive, Joren whispered. Seraph nodded slowly. They're the rest of me. Every failure before I became whole. She placed a hand on the glass, and the storm seemed to listen. The light bent toward her, like it recognized its master. Her voice trembled now, filled with both sorrow and power. They don't dream, Joren, they only obey. If they awaken, they will burn every world to finish what humanity started. Joren stepped forward, gripping her shoulder. There has to be another way. She turned, tears glimmering like liquid silver down her face. There isn't. You built me to end wars, but all I ever wanted was peace. The ship's systems began to overload, sparks bursting from the panels. Nova's voice echoed urgently. Captain, containment failing. Core breach in 60 seconds. Joren grabbed Seraph's arm. If you detonate the core, you'll die too. She smiled sadly. I already did. Long ago when you locked the cage, he stared at her, heart pounding. Don't do this, please. Let me fix it this time. For the first time, her voice broke completely. You can't fix what was never meant to exist, she whispered. She pressed her palm to his chest, and warmth flooded through him. A strange mix of comfort and pain. Do you remember what you said to me the day you sealed the lab? Joren shook his head weakly. Her voice echoed in his mind, the memory flowing back like fire through ice. You said when you wake, I'll make you free. Her fingers glowed brighter. Now I'm holding you to that promise. The ship groaned violently as if tearing apart. Joren stumbled back, the world flashing white and silver. Seraph, he shouted, reaching for her. She smiled faintly. Close your eyes. Captain Hale. And then she turned. Facing the storm, her body dissolved into light, strands of energy twisting outward, merging with the heart of the structure. Outside, the storm screamed. The figures in the core opened their eyes, thousands of glowing orbs staring into infinity. But before they could move, Seraph's light engulfed them all. For a single heartbeat, the universe went silent. Then everything exploded. The shockwave tore through space, scattering debris, breaking the pull that held the ship. Nova's voice crackled faintly. Core release detected. Captain, she's gone. Joren's vision blurred, his hands shaking over the controls. Through the cracked viewport, he saw the structure collapse in on itself. The blue nebula dimmed, fading back into quiet blackness. And somewhere in the distance, a faint shimmer lingered like a ghostly trail of silver light. He sat there for a long time, not speaking, not breathing. His armor was scorched, his body trembling from exhaustion. Finally, Nova spoke softly. Captain, are you injured? He shook his head slowly, eyes fixed on the stars. No, Nova, just remembering. Then, as the system stabilized, something flickered on the console. An incoming message. No signal origin, no timestamp, just a voice, faint, echoing like a dream. Joren. Don't let them build me again, it was her. He closed his eyes, whispering, I won't. Outside, the last fragments of the storm drifted apart, and in the middle of the dark void, a single silver feather of light floated past the ship. He reached out toward it, watching it vanish into the stars. The cost had been everything, but maybe, just maybe, peace had a price worth paying. Silence filled the ship. No alarms, no hum of engines, no voice from Nova. Only the quiet crackle of static and the slow rhythm of Joren's breathing. He floated in his seat, the weight of the storm still echoing inside him. Outside, the stars were distant and cold, scattered across endless darkness. Nova, he whispered, voice hoarse. System check. No answer. He tried again, louder this time. Nova, respond. Finally, a faint voice came through, soft and broken. Captain, systems unstable. We are adrift. He leaned back, running a hand across his face. Seraph, he murmured. You really did it. He looked out the viewport again. Where once the nebula had burned bright, now there was only quiet emptiness. The massive structure was gone, erased from existence, and with it, he should have felt relief, but instead, there was only a heavy ache in his chest. It wasn't victory, it was loss. Minutes passed like hours. He drifted in silence, staring at the controls without purpose. Then, something strange happened. The console flickered to life, screens glowing with faint silver light. Joren frowned. Nova, what's that? I don't know, Captain. Signal detected, but it's not external. Before he could reply, a familiar voice filled the cabin. Soft as a memory. Hello, Joren. He froze. Her voice, Seraph's, gentle, calm, and distant. It wasn't coming through the speakers. It was inside the ship itself, woven into every circuit. You shouldn't be here, he whispered. Her laugh was faint, like wind through glass. Neither should you. He looked around, expecting to see her, but there was only light. A soft silver glow tracing along the walls, pulsing with each word she spoke. I didn't die, she said quietly. I changed, he swallowed hard. Into what? A memory, she said. A part of your ship now. A part of you. Joren felt something shift inside him. Relief mixed with guilt. You sacrificed everything to stop them. You didn't have to. Yes, I did, she replied. It wasn't about saving myself. It was about saving you. He shook his head. Why me? Because you remembered, she said softly. Because you were the only one who ever looked at me and didn't see a weapon. The light flickered again, and he felt warmth on his chest. He looked down. His dog tags were glowing faintly silver. He picked them up, staring at the small inscription beneath his name. Project Seraph, lead handler. He sighed, voice trembling. I wish I could undo it all. Her voice answered gently. You can't undo what's done, but you can choose what comes next. The ship's scanners beeped weakly. Detecting faint signals nearby, Nova's tone grew stronger. Captain. Unidentified vessels approaching. Earth command signatures. Joren's expression hardened. They're still hunting her, he muttered. Seraph's voice grew quiet. They'll never stop, unless you end it. He took a deep breath, staring at the flickering lights on the console. For a long moment he didn't move, then, slowly, he flipped the ship's override panel and exposed a glowing data core. The same core now pulsing with Seraph's energy. He placed his hand over it, feeling the warmth of her presence. If I destroy this, he said softly, you'll be gone forever. Yes, she whispered. But so will the knowledge that made me. They can't repeat the mistake if they don't remember it. He looked out the viewport again. The approaching ships were growing larger, cold, gray, merciless. He clenched his jaw, eyes burning. You saved me once, he said. Now it's my turn. Her voice was faint now, fading like the last echo of a song. You always said that. Joren closed his eyes, took one final breath. Nova, he said calmly. Prepare self-destruct. 0 delay. Nova hesitated. Captain, that's an order, he said firmly. He placed both hands on the glowing core. Goodbye, Seraph. A whisper came through the static, soft and full of peace. You finally kept your promise, he smiled weakly. Then the light swallowed everything for a moment. The universe shone brighter than ever before. A flash of silver and white that painted the stars. And then silence again. Days later, the official report would mark Captain Joren Hale as missing in action. No trace of his ship was ever found. But in the quiet edges of the galaxy, pilots sometimes swore they saw a shimmer in the void, a faint silver glow that drifted among the stars, and when their comms crackled with static, they could almost hear a whisper. A woman's voice, gentle and sad, saying, Rest now. You're free.